This will be in the lecture notes for Chapter 15, Section 2. And Section 2 we look at the movement and erosion of glaciers. How do glaciers move? When ice accumulation is thick enough, a glacier will begin to flow. Again, it's controlled by speed, and the amount of flow depends on the slope and weight, gravity. You know, how much mass is there, and what's the slope, or how is gravity going to affect that glacier? How's it going to move? The way they do move, the two different types of movement are basal slip and then internal plastic flow, and we'll detail those here in the next slide. Basal slip occurs at the base of a glacier when the weight of the overlying ice exerts enough pressure to melt some of the ice at the base of the glacier. It's going to start to move, and ice skaters, hockey players know this, that their skates, the pressure of their skates on the ice actually is melting the ice and allows their skates to ride on a thin cushion of water. Same thing in a glacier. The melting ice creates a slippery surface for the overlying glacier to slide over. Again, it depends on the slope, the steepness of the slope that the glacier exists in, and the underlying material. Is it bedrock, or is it more gravel? How easy can it slide over the surface that it was deposited on? The other factor of how a glacier moves is internal plastic flow, and this occurs within the glacier. Solid ice crystals throughout the glacier slip past each other, and it'll create a slow forward motion, kind of like a river. Not all parts of the glacier flow at the same speed, and where would it flow the fastest, slowest, and why? Just like a river, it's going to flow fastest at the outer edges and the meander in the curves, and it's going to be slower towards the center of the path. And this will explain sometimes when you see a glacier, the surface is fairly erratic. There's a lot of crevasses or spires and peaks, and because the glacier isn't moving at the same rate, it will tend to cause those cracks or crevasses, those spires. And of course, melting rates aren't the same throughout a glacier either, so it can sometimes look fairly jagged. Valley glacier formations. In the valley glacier, a couple of the words, the vocabulary words that you'll see associated with valley glaciers or alpine glaciers. Number one is a cirque, and this is as it says, a bowl-shaped depression. Good illustration here of a couple cirques. Snow accumulates in these bowls, and as it accumulates, it's going to start to get massive, and it's going to want to move downhill. Gravity's pulling it down. What forms in between a couple of cirques then is an arête, and that's this ridge that forms in between a couple of cirques. There's an arête. Here's another one. You know, possibly at one time this cirque was a lot bigger, maybe encompassed this whole area and caused this arête to form. A horn, on the other hand, as the definition says, where several arêtes join to form a sharp pyramid-shaped peak. Typically, when I think of a horn, I think of like at least 3 sides. In this picture, you've got a cirque here and a cirque here with an arête in the middle. Here's another arête, and it'll typically form this pyramid-shaped horn. And as you can see here, this horn, the top is kind of bendy rotored away, or it's kind of not as pronounced as other horns. You could even call this a horn here. This looks more like an arête, but it could possibly be a horn where the cirque and this cirque on that side, there's possibly one on the other side here, form this horn. A hanging valley typically forms, it's typically a smaller glacier valley that got trapped or suspended on a higher part of the mountain, and the ice melt will flow over the cliff as a waterfall. Yosemite Falls is a classic example of a hanging valley that formed there. At one time there was a lot more snow and ice there, and that snow and ice got trapped at a higher elevation. You can expect that to happen here as this area melts. It'll create a waterfall in this area. A U-shaped valley. This typically occurs in a bigger valley glacier. As the valley walls and floors are scraped away by the glacier, the V-shaped valley is changed into a U-shape. You got to think at one time this valley here was probably filled in with snow and ice up to like maybe this level, and as it moved, again, just like a river, it's going to base towards sea level, flowing downhill, and carve this U-shaped valley. This will conclude the lecture notes for section 2 of chapter 15.